Ladies and gentlemen, hello, my name is Rainer. Welcome to Rainier Books, to my channel about books. I'm a German guy living in Sweden talking about books, mostly in English. This week is September, the middle of September, and what happens in the middle of September? It's award time. The Booker Prize is going to release its shortlist. I have to make a prediction about that. But even more important for me, at least, as a reader who is very much interested in what happens over the pond, on the other side of the pond in the United States, the National Book Award Foundation in the United States of America is going to release a couple of long lists. They are going to release, children and young adult long list. They are releasing a nonfiction long list. They are releasing a poetry long list. And of course, last but not least, they're also releasing a fiction long list. And I want to talk about the fiction long list. I want to make a little prediction about that one. So let's get started. As you can imagine, the United States is a super huge, big country, not only in terms of area, but also 330 million people live there. Lots of them, not millions, but lots of them are writers. And there's so many writers, there's so many publishers, there's so many books published each and every year. So what books are eligible for National Book Award in the United States for fiction? I think there are two major rules. The book can be a collection of short stories, which is different from the Booker, I think, because I don't recall a short story collection nominated for the Booker. One more thing is that the books have to be published in the United States. They have to be published between December 1 of 2020 for this time and the November 30 of 2021. So it's possible that a couple of books are nominated that will be published in the next coming 2.5 months. And another rule is, and that's different from the Booker has become sort of a world championship for literature in the English language. That's not the National Book Award, it's called National. So here we have it. You have to be either an American citizen or you have to be eligible for American citizenship, which makes it a little bit difficult sometimes for us from the outside to look inside and find out which author is eligible or not sometimes. But we try, And I put a list of 10 books, because they will publish 10 books. They will release 10 books on the long list. 10 books where I tried to mix everything in, and that's where the progressive stack that Steve Donoghue has talked about weeks ago comes in, because you have to find almost one representative of each and every minority. They have to be black and brown people. They have to be black and brown writers. They have to be queer writers. They have to be writers with the immigrant experience. They have to be classical American writers. They have to be people who release their first novel. Who make their debut with a novel. But they also have to be very well-known people, but not too much. Because awards have always the sort of task to present new books and new authors. But there have to be some stars. And I made a list, and I think I put it all together in this beautiful Rainier Books list of 10 that I'm going to present now, starting in alphabetical order by the last name of the authors. You will be surprised. There are, I think, 3 big names in it. And we start with an author I didn't know. Her name is Jamie Figueroa, and the book is called Brother, Mother, Sister, Explorer, published by Catapult on March the 2nd of 2021. This is about siblings who live in the tourist town of Ciudad de Tres Hermanas, in the aftermath of their mother's passing. 2 siblings spend a final weekend together in their childhood home, a novel of just a little bit more than 200 pages. To support themselves, they dress in colorful costumes and stand as statues on squares in the town. Costumes made by a guy called the Explorer. But the ghost of their mother haunts them at night. Rafa is the brother. He's a broken man, and Rufina, his sister, who has a different father than Rafa, is ogled by men and feared by women, but she's also traumatized. A beautifully crafted book that makes you think about the people we see as tourists and who might have a story, a backstory like Rafa and Rufina. That was my first candidate. The next candidate is a very well-known, established author. She has been longlisted or even shortlisted twice before, I think. And we're talking about Matrix by Lauren Groff, published by Riverhead on September 7. This is about 17-year-old Marie, too wild for courtly life. She's thrown to the dogs one winter morning, expelled from the royal court to become the prioress of an abbey. Mary is strange, tall, a giantess. Her elbows and knees stick out, ungainly. At first taken aback by life at the abbey, Mary finds purpose and passion among her mercurial sisters. Yet she deeply misses her secret lover, Cecily, and Queen Eleanor. Born last in a long line of women warriors and crusaders, women who flew across the countryside with a sword, fighting, and dagger work, Marie decides to chart a bold new course for the women she now leads and protects. She will bring herself and her sisters out of the darkness into riches and power. Matrix is a bold vision of female love, devotion, and desire from one of the most adventurous and most well-known American authors of today, Matrix by Lauren Groff. The third book was published by Grey Wolf Press on March the 2nd. This is Abundance by Jakob Guanzon. It's a debut novel. Evicted from their trailer on New Year's Eve, Henry and his son Junior have been reduced to living out of a pickup truck. 6 months later, things are even more desperate. Henry, barely a year out of prison for pushing opioids, is down to his last pocketful of dollars. And little remains between him and the street. But hope is on the horizon. Today is Junior's birthday, and Henry has a job interview tomorrow. To celebrate, Henry treats Junior to dinner at McDonald's, followed by a night in a real bed at a discount motel. For a moment, as Junior watches TV and Henry practices for his interview in the bathtub, all seems well. But after Henry has a disastrous altercation in the parking lot and Junior succumbs to a fever, father and son are sent into the night, struggling to hold things together and make it through tomorrow. In an ingenious structural approach, Jakob Guanzon organizes abundance by the amount of cash in Henry's pocket. A new chapter starts with each debit and credit, and the novel expands and contracts, revealing the extent to which the quality of our intention is altered by the abundance or lack thereof that surrounds us. Set in an America of big box stores and fast food, this incandescent debut novel trawls the fluorescent aisles of Walmart and the booths of Red Lobster to reveal the inequities and anxieties around work, debt, addiction, incarceration, and healthcare in America today. So this is truly an American novel of today. And that's why I put it on my list of 10 books for the National Book Award for Fiction. Number 4, another established author. He was on the short list some years back, Brandon Hobson and his novel The Removed, published by Echo on February the 2nd. In the 15 years since their teenage son Ray Ray was killed in a police shooting, the Echoda family has been suspended in private grief. The mother, Maria, increasingly struggles to manage the onset of Alzheimer's in her husband. Ernest, their adult daughter, the mother, Maria, increasingly struggles to manage the onset of Alzheimer's in her husband, Ernest. Their adult daughter, Sonia, leads a life of solitude punctuated only by spells of dizzying, romantic obsession. And their son, Edgar, fled home long ago, turning to drugs to mute his feelings of alienation. With the family's annual bonfire approaching, an occasion marking both the Cherokee national holiday and Ray Ray's death, and a rare moment in which they openly talk about his memory, Maria attempts to call the family together from their physical and emotional distances once more. But as the bonfire draws near, each of them feels a strange blurring of the boundary between normal life and the spirit world. Maria and Ernest take in a foster child who seems to almost miraculously keep Ernest's mental fog at bay. Sanya becomes dangerously fixated on a man named Nguyen, despite or perhaps because of his ties to tragedy in her lifetime and lifetimes before. And in the wake of a suicide attempt, Edgar finds himself in the mysterious darkening land, a place between the living and the dead where old atrocities echo. Drawing deeply on Cherokee folklore, The Removed seamlessly blends the real and spiritual to excavate the deep reverberations of trauma, a meditation on family, grief, home, and the power of stories on both a personal and ancestral level. Number 5 is a book that I read earlier this year that I LOVE'd. I loved it. I raved about it. I made a singular review about it. I want you to read it, and I want the National Book Award Foundation to put it on the long list. This is How Beautiful We Were by Imbolo Mbue. It was published by Random House on March the 9th this year. Imbolo Mbue has written her second novel, and where the first novel was playing in America, the second novel is playing in Africa, in a land that is not named, in a village, mostly in a village, where the villagers are being tormented by an American company who's drilling for oil and who is poisoning the soil of the earth so that people get sick and people die for years and decades. And these people try to resist, they try to fight for their lives and for their identities. And it's about this community of the village that gets lost over the decades. I think this book spans about 40 years. And it's about the beautiful things that we were, how beautiful we were. An amazing book, beautifully told by Imbolo Mbue, who is a great author and who has already enchanted us with her first novel, but who does it again now for the second time. That is my number 5 on my list of books for the National Book Award. Number 6 comes another debut novel. Here is Things We Lost to the Water by Eric Nguyen, published by Knopf on May the 4th. When Huang arrives in New Orleans with her 2 young sons, she's jobless, homeless, and worried about her husband Kong, who remains in Vietnam. As she and her boys begin to settle for life in America, she continues to send letters and tapes back to Kong, hopeful that they will be reunited and her children will grow up with a father. But with time, Huang realizes she will never see her husband again. While she attempts to come to terms with this loss, her sons, Tuan and Bin, grow up in their absent father's shadow, haunted by a man and a country trapped in their memories and imaginations. As they push forward, the 3 adapt to life in America in different ways. Huang gets involved with a Vietnamese car salesman who is new into town. Tuan tries to connect with his heritage by joining a local Vietnamese gang, and Bin, now going by Ben, embraces his adopted homeland and his burgeoning sexuality. Their search for identity as individuals and as a family threatens to tear them apart until disaster strikes the city they now call home, and they are suddenly forced to find a new way to come together and honor the ties that bind them. Then a book that I haven't read, but that many, many, many people on BookTube have raved about, have loved it. I have to get it. This is number 7 on my list for the National Book Award for Fiction of 2021. This is Detransition Baby by Torrey Peters, published by One World on January the 12th. Reese almost had it all: a loving relationship with Amy, an apartment in New York City, a job she didn't hate. She had scraped together with previous generations of trans women, could only dream of a life of mundane bourgeois comforts. The only thing missing was a child. But then her girlfriend, Amy, detransitioned and became Ames, and everything fell apart. Now Reese is caught in a self-destructive pattern, avoiding her loneliness by sleeping with married men. Ames isn't happy either. He thought detransitioning to life as a man would make life easier for him. But that decision cost him his relationship with Reese, and losing her meant losing his only family. Even though their romance is over, he longs to find a way back to her. When Ames's boss and lover, Katrina, reveals that she's pregnant with his baby and that she's not sure whether she wants to keep it, Ames wonders if this is the chance he's been waiting for. Could the three of them form some kind of unconventional family and raise the baby together? This provocative debut is about what happens at the emotional, messy, vulnerable corners of womanhood that platitudes and good intentions can't reach. Torrey Peters brilliantly and fearlessly navigates the most dangerous taboos around gender, sex, and relationships, gifting us a thrillingly original, witty, and deeply moving novel. Number 8 is a book that is also nominated on the Longlist for the Booker Prize in the UK. It's from America, it's from an American author, and I think it fits so well into our time that it will also be nominated for the Longlist of the National Book Award. This is Bewilderment by Richard Powers, published by W.W. Norton on September the 21st. The astrobiologist Theo Byrne searches for life throughout the cosmos while single-handedly raising his unusual 9-year-old son Robin following the death of his wife. Robin is a warm, kind boy who spends hours painting elaborate pictures of endangered animals. He's also about to be expelled from 3rd grade for smashing his friend in the face. As his son grows more troubled, Theo hopes to keep him off psychoactive drugs. He learns of an experimental neurofeedback treatment to bolster Robin's emotional control, one that involves training the boy on the recorded patterns of his mother's brain. With its soaring descriptions of the natural world, its tantalizing vision of life beyond, and its account of a father and son's ferocious love, Bewilderment marks Richard Powers' most intimate and moving novel. At its heart lies the question, how can we tell our children the truth about this beautiful, imperiled planet? Many of you have loved this book already, and I think it sounds like the National Book Award cannot look beyond it, cannot look past it. Number 9 is a second book that is also from the Booker Longlist, but it's an American book, folks, so it's eligible for the National Book Award. And here it comes. It's Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead, published by Random House on June the 1st. This is about Marion Graves, a woman from Missoula, Montana, who became a pilot. She was one of these women pilots, pioneers that tried to travel all around the world, like Amelia Earhart, for example. She was the most well-known of them. But it's also a century later about Hadley Baxter, who is casted to play Marion in a movie in Hollywood that centers on Marion's disappearance in Antarctica. Vibrant, canny, disgusted with the claustrophobia of Hollywood, Hadley is eager to redefine herself after a romantic film franchise has imprisoned her in the grip of cult celebrity. This is an epic and emotional, meticulously researched and gloriously told novel and story, a work of art and a tremendous leap forward for the prodigiously gifted writer named Maggie Shipstead. Number 10. Another superstar. A guy who has been nominated for the National Book Award a couple of times. A guy who has won not one, but 2 Pulitzer Prizes for his novels. You know who I'm talking about? Colson Whitehead comes with a new novel called Harlem Shuffle. And who can ignore Colson Whitehead? This is published actually today when I filmed the video by Doubleday on September the 14th in the United States. Ray Carney was only slightly bent when it came to being crooked. To his customers and neighbors on 125th Street, Carney is an upstanding salesman of reasonably priced furniture, making a decent life for himself and his family. He and his wife, Elizabeth, are expecting their second child, and if her parents on Strivers Road don't approve of him or their cramped apartment across from the subway tracks, it's still home. Few people know he descends from a line of uptown hoods and crooks, and that his facade of normalcy has more than a few cracks in it. cracks that are getting bigger all the time. Cash is tight, especially with all those installment plans so far, so if his cousin Freddie occasionally drops of the odd ring or necklace, Ray doesn't ask where it comes from. He knows a discreet jeweler downtown who doesn't ask questions. So this is a story in Harlem, in New York City. It's an ingenious story, plays out in a beautifully recreated New York City of the early 1960s. It's a family saga masquerading as a crime novel, a hilariously morality play, a social novel about race and power, and ultimately a love letter to Harlem. But mostly it's a joy to read another dazzling novel from the Pulitzer Prize and National Book Award winning Colson Whitehead. This is my long list for the National Book Award. It might be that not a single one of my suggestions will be on the list. It might be that 2 or 3 will be there. You never know what the jury will pick, because I'm not in the jury. The jury will go through around 300 books, and this week we will know more. Tell me what you think of these books, and tell me if you have a suggestion that's not on my list that you think should be absolutely on the long list of the National Book Award of 2021. I will come with another video where I predict the shortlist of the Booker Prize soon, but now for today, at least for this beautiful sunny day here, I say thank you very much for watching the video. Stay tuned to my channel, but most of all, please stay safe. Thank you and bye-bye.